but we're not playing at home, so I don't have to be. I'm going to say that the Chiefs do pull this one out. I'm going to keep the 38 number, but I think the Texans will make it a little bit closer. We'll say 38-33.
Well, we will see. And I will be enjoying my beer a week from now. So, hey, good times.
Man, worst case scenario, man. I can either get my prediction of the game right or one of the playoffs. So both ways I win.
That's the way to do it. All right, have a good one, James.
Thanks, you as well.
So I'm going to pull the curtain here and let you know, just like last week when Eagles James tried giving me a 31-minute superfan battle, these guys tried giving me a 25-minute superfan battle. Now, I was only able to cut 5 minutes out of theirs, where I managed to cut almost 12 minutes out of yours, James. I mean,
you're welcome.
Come on. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Hey, James, can you imagine that one? That's going to be like Nick going on, droning on for 20 minutes about Patrick Mahomes, and then 5 minutes of Texas James giving us the various percentages on how much chance it's going to snow.
Well, speaking of snow, it will snow on Saturday in Kansas City, but not on Sunday. It will be 38 degrees and sunny on Sunday. That's a shame. So they missed the snow by a day. Texans have won 2 of the last 3 versus the Chiefs, including earlier this year in October. You heard them mention that game quite a number of times in that preview. J.J. Watt, even in limited snaps, was a difference maker.
No, he wasn't.
Oh, yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
He absolutely was, Neil.
He really was a difference maker.
Okay,
Buffalo.
maybe, but are you guys going to tell me that you didn't get absolutely cheesed off at some point? But every time there was a play, the camera panned to J.J. Watt.
Honestly, that was ridiculous.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, he was a difference.
There's going to be a camera
if
on
J.J. Watt had not played in that game, I don't think. I mean, I think we might have seen the Bills here instead of the Houston Texans.
But I might have had a better Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Man. Nick will tell you that the Chiefs D is much improved as the season went on. And honestly, I do think that this one is going to be closer than that line. I don't know why this is the biggest line of the weekend. But I will, again, take Kansas City at home. Neil, you're locking the Chiefs in.
Yeah, I kind of have a feeling that, I was going to ask you guys anyway, so I might as well ask you here right now. We've got 8 teams left. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? And I'll go with the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs I think it's just coming into a nice situation for them. Mahomes had his injuries this year, and he's looked, like he's getting back to his best.
Against everything you've ever said, Neil. The Chiefs?
Right.
Yeah. You've always said a running game and defense wins championships, and that's not the Kansas City Chiefs.
I know, but it does go against. Ordinarily, I would probably pick the Ravens as being the best team, maybe against the 49ers in the Super Bowl. But I just have this sneaky feeling. I was looking at last year's playoffs and thinking, the Chiefs were close last year. They were very close. Obviously, they had a very tight game with you guys at the end.
No, they weren't close.
Well, it was. They went to. Was it overtime against the Patriots?
It was overtime. Yeah,
it was overtime, but it really wasn't that close. Watching the game.
Well, honestly, you can't get much closer than overtime.
The score will lie to you. I know, but the score will lie to you. That first half was a clinic run by the Patriots, and for Andy Reid to be a quote offensive genius to not net more than 50 yards of offense in that first half of the AFC Championship was disgusting.
Oh yeah,
and here's my point on this game. In the fourth quarter, if this game is close, under a touchdown, which one of these head coaches screws it up for their offense? Ryan or Andy Reid, because they both have a history of screwing it up in the playoffs.
I don't know, James, but just when you mentioned clinic there, I should say that they phoned earlier, and you've got to phone them back urgently.
Oh, gosh. Finish your point, Neil.
Anyway, I think the Chiefs will. I get what you're saying, James. You're absolutely right, but I just have a feeling that somehow the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I had this feeling today when I was sitting in a rather boring meeting about contracts, preparing for this. I thought, this could just be the year.
Vladimir Putin's on line 1, and the clinic is on line 2.
Oh gosh. Injuries for this game. Travis Kelce is nursing a knee injury. He was limited in practice this week. Morris Claiborne, cornerback, has a shoulder injury. He didn't practice on Wednesday. But the shoulder is not from injury. Like, he didn't do this in the game. This is non-football related, apparently.
Huh.
Right.
What's the weather like in Baltimore at this time of year?
Cold.
Typically, it's not good. It's cold. It's not warm.
Okay.
For the Houston Texans, obviously J.J. Watt shows up on the injury report. He has he has a shoulder injury to go along with his reattached pec muscle, so he was limited in practice. Tight end Jordan Atkins has a hamstring, so he was limited. Wide receivers Kenny Stills and Will Fuller nursing a knee and inner thigh injury, respectively. So we may see Fuller this week. We may not. He says that he wants to go, but don't hold your breath on that.
And Will Fuller is a big difference maker for the Texans offense. If he's in, they're much more effective. If he's out, it's a bigger struggle.
And it will cause problems for the Chiefs defense. Safety Jaleel Adai has an Achilles injury, so he's day-to-day. Cornerback Jonathan Joseph is questionable. I do believe he left the Buffalo game early. Keon Crossan is also on the injury report, along with linebacker Jacob Martin and offensive tackle Chris Clark, who left Sunday's game against the Bills with a concussion, so he's in protocol.
Am I right in thinking that the Texans beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead this year already?
They did. I mentioned that. Thanks for listening, Neil. I appreciate it.
Right, Neil.
I'm still on that.
I've only been on the show for X number of years in the last hour.
Did you guys expect so much of me? Jeez.
As was detailed,
this is why you already have 1 foot in the grave.
And as James and Nick detailed, the Chiefs had the ball for 2 possessions. They were 3 and outs in the final 16 minutes of the football game.
But, earlier on we mentioned how good Cousins, did something for his whole career reputation with that one play. What about Watson in that game where he sort of bounced off the potential sack there and threw the ball to the tight end? How great a play was that? And I'd also say J.J. Watt was not involved.
That was probably the best part.
Jay,
it was great.
I asked you the same question. Who messes this game up in the fourth quarter, O'Brien or Reed?
If O'Brien follows the same blueprint as he did earlier and does everything he can to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, he'll be fine. So I think that's the only way Bill O'Brien can screw things up at the end. And with Andy Reid, it'll come down to a clock mismanagement of some sort. He'll forget what time it is. Anyway.
That's all I got.
James, who are you picking in this one?
You know what? Just to be contrarian, I'm going to go with the Texans.
Oh, how dare you.
I know. I can't pick the home teams in every single game this weekend.
Why not? Neil and I did. Actually, no, Neil didn't. I did, though. The next game is on Fox. It's at 6:40 p.m. on Sunday night. It'll be the Seattle Seahawks at the Green Bay Packers. The Seahawks finished the season 7th in our power rankings. The Packers finished 6th. This is the smallest point spread, which I don't understand, at -4. And here are Justin and Brian.
Back with another Superfan battle. This is Justin, the Seahawks Superfan, here with Brian, the Green Bay Packers Superfan. Brian, we have had this conversation many times over the last couple of years, and I am excited to have this with you one more time.
I know. It just seems like regardless of, the way the schedule makers set it up for us, you and I always seem to run into each other in these situations, and I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah, and we'll try to keep this to less than 30 minutes so PodVader doesn't flame me alive this time. Obviously, the Seahawks are making the trip out to beautiful Green Bay for a playoff game. The winner of this one goes on to the conference championship. So, Brian, let's get right to it. Going into this game, how are you feeling about your team and your chances for victory?
I feel uncomfortably confident, actually, is I think the best way to describe it. I think of all the teams in the playoffs in the NFC, I don't know that there's one that we match up better against than the Seattle Seahawks. especially on defense. I think this is a different Packers team than even I'm used to, and I'm sure the rest of the viewing audience is not used to this type of a team either. The defense has really carried us for much of the year, and quite frankly, I just love the way we match up. I think on a good day, with all of your starters healthy, I think our D-line still eats your offensive line for lunch, but against a banged-up unit, down potentially Dwayne Brown, Ethan Pocic, Justin Britt, I think the potential exists that we do to you guys what we did to Minnesota, and the D-line just takes over. Now, obviously, that still leaves Russell, who's a wizard, an evil wizard, but a wizard nonetheless. And we will need to account for him. So that's always something that we'll need to be aware of and have a plan for. But you know what's really interesting about this is, in some ways, I think Russell is in the same spot that Rodgers has been in for most of his career, where the team around him has some deficiencies and really kind of need to rely on him to be otherworldly in order to win. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that a lot. And now, see, the secret to the Seahawks' success is that if your offensive line is already terrible, then you don't lose much by having guys out. Boom, advantage Seahawks,
tricky.
Right?
Very tricky.
Yeah, I like that we're starting off with this part of the matchup because I think the Seahawks offense versus the Green Bay defense is where you're going to see the best clash of units on the field, right? Where you're going to see a really very, very good Green Bay defense, which is an unusual thing to say, versus a Seahawks offense that, even with the struggles on offensive line, things like that, have the ability to strike for a deep touchdown at a moment's notice anytime, and have done a pretty good job of putting points on the board all year. Seahawks couldn't run a lick last week, not a bit. And Philly's a good run defense team. Green Bay is a good defense team, just kind of across the board. And so that's probably what gives me cause to worry. I think that you're totally right. Like, Russell's going to have to make some big throws in short amounts of time for them to be able to have success. But I think that's a possibility. What I want to know is how you think Green Bay is going to go after him.
Well, Green Bay, shockingly, has gotten a lot of pressure this year without having to blitz. We're bottom 5 in blitz percentage. So I imagine we're going to try to send our 4, and I've seen quite a few replays this year where we've actually sent 3 and still got a free hitter on quarterbacks. So you're right when you say that I do not miss Dom Capers. Mike Pettin has done a phenomenal job, and quite frankly, he's got much more to work with than Dom ever did. I imagine we're going to have to spy him. I think the question is who we do that with. Now, most of the year, Pettin has used Tyler Fackrell as a spy against mobile quarterbacks, a different position than he would normally be playing. But he, in our matchup last year, he lit Russ up to the tune of 3 sacks. He had 4 quarterback hits, 1 pass deflection. It was the best game of his career. There's the potential that we try to match him up. But more likely, I think we'll probably try to stick a safety on him. I think, if we try to put Kyler in a spy position, we're going to have to play him kind of back off the line quite a ways because he just doesn't have the speed that some of our safeties do. The part that makes me a little more nervous is the secondary for Green Bay. It's a pretty good defense all the way around, and that's true. I think the strength of our defense, though, is definitely the front 4. The back 7, still good, but, just a little bit weaker. But quite frankly, if we look at just kind of looking at the matchups, I think we really align pretty well with the athletic traits to counter the wide receivers of Seattle. I'm guessing we'll try to shadow Lockett with Jair, who's, speedy and aggressive, and on short and intermediate throws tends to be really sticky in coverage. Deeper stuff, a little more circumspect. Probably the player who worries me a little more is DK Metcalf. I think he'll probably draw Kevin King, who, similar to DK, is not really much of a change of direction type of a player, but his best coverage routes tend to be slants and the deep, 9 routes, go routes. DK's obviously got a big weight advantage, so there is always a chance that he can just truck stick King if he gets ahead of steam. But I tend to think King can do a decent enough job of stopping that head of steam from happening.
DK and Lockett are both good enough that even if you have good matchups on them, they still have the ability to break it open anytime, especially if you have a single lapse in coverage. There's a good chance that's going for 6. On the other side of the ball, though, this is an interesting one to me because even on offense, I don't know that your team is necessarily that dependent on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the running game has actually been pretty good for you this year.
Yeah, I think that's another